Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to Haman's Advice Forum. My name is Haman. If you did not know, I'm in my 30s, and I think a lot of my 20s I spent a little frustrated just because I had no one to really teach me the things I wanted to learn. And even if there was nobody to teach me the things I wanted to learn, there was nobody out there, at least none of my peers, who were interested in learning the things that I want to learn, right? And so, if you look at the statistics or look at any like documentary on YouTube or the Dave Ramsey show, there is an endless supply of people who are struggling in life, right? There's an endless supply. And a lot of people kind of take it for granted that if you just have a decent home and you don't have to think about paying your bills just from month to month, or you're not in the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm one paycheck away from homelessness, you are better off than most people. And, I'm not like super successful or anything like that, but I'm trying to get there because I feel like you're either, you could stay where you're at, but most likely as you grow older, the ideal trajectory would be, you keep going up and up and keep growing instead of either just staying at what you're at or just falling. And that would be, in my opinion, the most ideal trajectory. And I figured, and maybe I was naive thinking this, that when I got older, there would be people younger than me who would appreciate the things that I talk about, because I know that the things I talk about, some of it with some of you guys, it really resonates. I've had some of you tell me, "Man, I'm so glad that you do your little video podcasts or whatever, and because you really changed my perspective, right?" And there, and but then the thing is that people like you are in the minority, and that's sad, right? Because a lot of people I encounter in real life, they're very, it's like you tell them how to make $1 million, right? And I'm not saying I know how to make $1 million, but let's say like I tell like I have the secret to make $1 million, and I'll tell you for free. A lot of people were like, "Oh, I already know how to do that," but they don't know how to do that, right? And and that's the same thing I counter with both older and younger people. But I guess on this podcast, I'm gonna focus more on younger people because I feel like that's an attitude that someone older who hasn't succeeded in life has. It's like a big ego, and you tried a bunch of things, but you never really succeeded. And that's kind of like what a lot of younger people like. That's kind of like the attitude I see in a lot of younger people. Not all of them. I mean, I'm like, oh, you're okay. You ask the right questions, and it seems like you're curious enough to ask the right questions to succeed in life. But for the rest of your peers, like, holy crap. And as when you become more successful and as you get older, one of the things that you'll realize is that a lot of people out there won't value the knowledge that you try to impart to others. And it's like, for example, with me, I can teach pretty much any overweight person how to lose weight, maybe like 20 to 40 pounds in like, I don't know, 2 to 3 months without any exercise, right? But how many people are there who are overweight, but they give like, they're quote experts in giving diet advice, but that's because they probably tried every diet out there and they failed. And I guess when I was in my 20s, I used to get like really frustrated with this shit. It's like, why would you, give advice and you're not successful yourself? Because I was at that age, so I wouldn't say desperate. Just I had this urge, like I want to be good at what I do, right? And I don't want to be surrounded with people who fill me with junk ideas or who don't give a shit or who just waste my time. And that's a phrase in my 20s that I used to say a lot. I don't say as much anymore. It's just because I think I just mostly avoid people now. But I was like, in my 20s, like, why the fuck do you waste my time like this? You're doing shit and you're giving me advice and your shit doesn't even work. And you know, I'd be like really angry and emotional. And people will look at me like I'm the crazy one, right? So back to my point, you know, when it comes to young people, I think the worst attitude you could have is, you know, where you don't have, you know, you don't have enough life experience because you've been locked up in school for 12 plus years. And I say 12 plus because maybe you went to 4 years of college. So you've been institutionalized for many, many years, right? And then, you know, once it's like growing up in a farm, like you're an animal and you're locked up in one of those factory farms. And then, you know, the big factory farms decide to kick you out and make you survive in the wild. And if you've been, you know, institutionalized like that for that many years of your life, and then you're kicked out of that institution, you ain't going to know how to survive in the wild. And that's the case for me too. Like I totally went through that, you know, they were like, man, you got to go to school for 12 plus years. And, you know, you should think about go to college. And if you don't, you know, if you don't think about going to college and there's something wrong with you and your life is over. And then, you know, you go to college and then they don't teach you any life skills. They don't teach you about like the things you need to survive in the wild, like how to manage your money or how to make money, or how money even works, or taxes or anything like that. And then they kick you out of college, meaning graduating, and you're now left to fend for yourself. And you're, you know, at least for me, I was wondering, what the fuck is this? Like, someone should have taught me, instead of getting mad at me for not studying for my SATs, someone should have taught me just basic skills of life so I could survive out there, like learning how to cook healthy meals, you know, learning how to make money, because, you know, if you don't learn basic skills to survive, you're just going to be a statistic, right? You're going to be one of those callers in the Dave Ramsey show where you're saying you're in $400,000 in debt and, you know, you're not making any money. And what do? Right? It's all too common. And that's, and that's kind of like the problem what young people face is they don't have enough life experience to survive out there in the world. But at the same time, they act like they know everything, right? And don't get me wrong, older people do this too. But the thing is, when you're older, and I see this in my case too, you don't have the desire or the capacity to learn new ideas. Like, for example, when I was like younger, I could easily take on a new language. And it was still a struggle, of course. But right now, I don't even have the curiosity or the motivation, or I don't even think I even have the capacity to learn a new language. And I just don't care, right? And that's kind of like what I see in younger people. Not all of them. Obviously, there's going to be some bright ones, and you know, like with Dave Ramsey, they're either really, you know, when he talks about millennials, and I think about this people who are actually my age and younger than me, they're either really bad or really good. You know, they're really bad or really good, and I think the bad ones kind of sour everyone's perception, especially mine. But I know I can't. I don't want to say stereotype. What's another word for stereotype? I guess group, an entire group of people. I guess that is stereotyping, and I do stereotype a lot. I admit I do. That they have a certain perspective, but when you have like repeated experiences over and over with a certain group of people, you kind of notice a pattern. You think, huh, interesting, and maybe I was like that too. I don't know. But I wanted to share with you guys an article that I read. I think is related to this, and you know, I'm a millennial, so this will apply to my generation, anyone younger. But this is how I feel when I talk to people who are younger than me. You know, people in their teens. So the title of the article is called "A Gen Xer's Rant: What's Wrong with My Millennial Employees?" and this is from Inc.com. So it's about a business owner, right? Maria Jimenez, and she's in her, you know, when she wrote this, she was in her 30s, and I think this was written like 2013, and basically She's running a multi-million dollar business from selling swimwear from Colombia, but she's based in Florida. And you know, she thought the problem getting her business off the ground was just actually making money. But later on, she realized it's just having like decent employees. And who knows, she could be a terrible business owner who treats her employees like crap. And that's all too common too. Like look at Walmart or Amazon. And but I thought it was an interesting read, and I wanted to share with you some points from that article. And I will post a link to that article in the details description of the YouTube video. So just share with you some key sentences from that article. I never imagined that the toughest problem I would have in running a multi-million-dollar business would not be getting off the ground, staying afloat, or growing at a rapid pace. While all huge challenges, they're a walk in the park compared to the business obstacle I've dealt with in 5.5 years of business. Recruiting a group of loyal, competent young employees under 30 years old. Right? And that's how I kind of feel with dealing with young people too, where me personally, I just don't ever see like people committing to what they say they're going to do. You know, it's everything is just what do you call it? I don't want to say it's a burden, but it's just like they say they want to do stuff, and then when you ask them like, okay, are you going to do it? They act like, oh man, like you're asking me to do something I don't want to do, and I'm confused because like you're the one who said you wanted to do it, and I will help you get there if you want to, and they think like I'm weird, right? And so and so she lists a list of grievances with millennial and younger employees, and I kind of feel this way when I interact with younger people too. Number one, they're cocky. And she says, I have yet to give a millennial a leadership position, having to accept their new role with humility. Once you give them a fancy title like assistant buyer or marketing specialist, they automatically seem to think they're God's gift to you, your clients, and your other employees. They're not afraid to speak to others in a condescending manner or even talk back to you. They nonchalantly move through life doing things I wouldn't have dreamed of doing to any of my superiors, let alone the owner of my company when I was their age. And this goes back to what I was talking to previously, where you don't have enough life experience, and that's okay if you don't. And I think that the best attitude to have is that, okay, I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna try new things, I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna see what works. But a lot of young people that I meet, and this probably applies to older people too, is they're really cocky, and they know more about life than, let's say, I would. Right? They know, like, let's say you talk to a bunch of teenagers, they know how college is going to be, even though they never went to college, more than me, for example, right? I went to college. I thought it was stupid, and I could, list a bunch of facts, statistics, just the college experience in general. I could reference literature about how college is for the average young person, but then the average teenager who hasn't gone to college knows more about college than I do, right? And a lot of people, like even college graduates, they just kind of push this. They just kind of, even though they know that there's a lot of myths about college, and they were probably disappointed when they went there as well. They just kind of, I don't know. Do you call it a confirmation bias? Like they just kind of don't try to correct the misperceptions that young people have. In fact, they kind of just push them just because they're not at that stage of life anymore. So, for example, let's say you're a 25-year-old teacher and you have to deal with like 17-year-olds. Do you tell them the truth that college is kind of a ripoff, especially for their generation, or just keep feeding them that lie that, oh my gosh, college, you need to go through it or else you're going to turn, poor or whatever, or be unsuccessful. And that's kind of what happens with a lot of younger people, is that they're just kind of fed lies by the next generation that's a little bit above them. So when I'm in my 30s and I talk to 17-year-olds, I kind of have the feeling that 17-year-olds will believe a 20-something-year-old more than I would, more than me, at least. But, I've extensively studied, even topics I've studied extensively, I want to share with them, but it kind of requires a change in mindset and kind of, I guess it's a radical shift in thinking with quotes, if you want to say that. Quotes, radical shift in thinking. But, yeah, man, like, back to my point, people are really cocky. And they think they know everything. And, for me, like, if you ask me a question, like, why is it that I have this opinion? I can always talk about my life experiences, but most young people can't. They're going to have a certain opinion. Why do you think that way? Well, it was fed to me. And because someone told me this was true, I don't care. And my thing is, okay, have an opinion because you went through something that was your life experience. You might be excited about college, but then entertain the idea. It's like, well, what if there are other options? What if this isn't worth it, right? What if I go, and even though it's a bad choice, at least I know that there were probably better choices I could have made, right? So I'll go to the next point. So the first point is they're cocky. Number 2, they take things for granted. Millennials seem to think they have a ton of options. Even in a recession-hobbled economy with a very few challenging entry-level openings and fewer in the fashion industry, 20-somethings seem to think their options are endless. That makes them less aware of how grateful they should be for the things they have, especially the unique opportunity to get paid to learn the ins and outs of a luxury industry startup. Recent graduates, regardless of where they went to school from time immemorial, have been asked to make copies and bring people coffee. Millennials, on the other hand, seem to think someone should have rolled out the red carpet when they popped out of school. I kind of disagree with this one. So what I mean by that is that, if you're a graduate, that doesn't mean like, oh, your job is just to make coffee and bring people copies. I mean, I kind of feel like that's the role of a servant. But at the same time, I do agree with the sentiment that people don't appreciate the opportunities that are out there. In fact, when I talk to a lot of young people, they just seem to think that, they don't really seem to have a fear of failure, which could be good or bad. And I think there was a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great about certain businesses that succeed in recessions and certain businesses that don't. And I never read the book. I just heard someone else talking about it. But basically, it's the businesses that are most likely to succeed in recessions have a fear of failure. And they know that, and the funny thing is that a lot of these young people, they don't have a fear of failure because they think everything's going to be okay. And so, when I talk to them, they just seem to think like, oh, I just go to school and everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, yeah, right. And, I don't even know where to begin with that when I hear that. I just want to point out all the people who are out there who are, and as you get older, you pretty much know everybody's like financial situation or health and just like little cues, how they speak will tell you where they're at, even if they never admit it. For example, let's say like, people have this weird obsession with like discounts and saving money. That probably means they're broke. Because I remember when I was broke, I had, a discount of $2 or $3 meant like the world to me. And now that I have a little bit more money, I don't even like, I can't, sometimes when I go to stores, I can't even remember the price of the things that I bought. So discounts and all that stuff don't mean anything to me. So, again, back to my point. A lot of young people take things for granted and they don't really have a fear of failure and they don't understand how there's not really that many options. And by the time they realize it, it's kind of too late, right? And that's the thing that happens is that you don't know what you know. And by the time you do realize what you do need to know, it's probably too late. Number 3. So she says they think they're exempt from the rules. I don't remember the last time I told a new employee something that he or she followed verbatim for the first time. In the beginning, before they understand implicitly that carelessness is not a value we favor, almost all millennials demonstrate they don't care what the consequences of their actions will be. These are all activities they seem to think are normal, sending emails to clients with blatant grammatical mistakes, knowingly tell customers incorrect information because they think that's the better answers, and ignoring an inquiry from their boss. Ooh, ignoring the rules. And I think that kind of is related to the last one. So the last one was they take things for granted, and it's important to follow the rules. And I've what's great is I don't really have this frustration anymore, and that's because I just avoid most people. But I imagine if I were in some sort of a supervisory role and I have to deal with a lot of young people, and this is one that I haven't really experienced too much because obviously I'm not in a position where I quote make the rules, but this would be really frustrating for me if I had to deal with that in a consistent basis. Next one. They don't follow through. If they end a day without finishing a task, they'll come in the next morning and forget they needed to finish it. I see myself explain over and over the term follow through as if we're some complex mathematical equation that only rocket scientists could grasp. Our expectation for an adult over 21 is that they are able to take care of tasks with little supervision without having to be reminded. But that's not the case with even our most responsible millennials. And I think that's just kind of sad. I used to see that a lot where I used to ask somebody to do something and they said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then they wouldn't do it and I said, "Well, did you do it?" And they act like I was like effing weird, right? And yeah, so I totally get this one. But again, I don't experience that frustration anymore because I avoid most people. Next one. They don't want to pay their dues. It's the culture of now for them, and frankly, this makes our fairly minor age difference seem like the gap of a century. When I graduated from college, my peers and I were fully aware that our first year or two in the workforce would be spent in dull jobs because you have to start from the bottom and work your way up. That mentality got me where I am today. Today, many of my young staffers seem to think they're entitled to a high salary and the most glamorous of tasks when they have no experience or proven track record. Yeah, and actually, you know what? I kind of disagree with that one somewhat. I mean, I kind of get it, the culture of now, but there's a lot of people, young people out there who are just kind of delaying their lives and not doing anything because it's like, well, I'm not enough until I get a college degree. I'm not enough until I have enough internship experience. I'm not enough until I have job experience. And they never, frankly, another problem with young people is they never start their lives. And I understand where she's coming from. But this is kind of like, I don't deal with this a lot because I don't deal with young people too often. And especially not in a professional capacity. I in my professional life, I just deal with people who are actually my age or older than me. And, as you get older, you really don't want to deal with young people anymore because of their weird recklessness and irrationality that you only think that would be out of your system by the time you're like 15 or 14. And then as you get older, you just kind of shake your head and thinking, oh my goodness, like I didn't understand that this is what most 20-something-year-olds would be like. And probably a lot of older people are like that too. But as you get older, your social group gets filtered by, profession or hobbies. And you don't have to deal with the variety of people that you did have to deal with when you were younger. And so, so this is just kind of my thoughts about dealing with young people. I don't really understand them, and I probably don't understand older people too. But I feel like the part that gets to me with the younger people is that they think that they know everything, but they don't have a life experience to really understand what their options are. And a lot of it is you don't know what you don't know, but you act like you already know and you've been there, right? At my age, like I could tell you like, oh, this happened to me in my 20s, or oh, this happened to me in my teens. And I made these mistakes, and you know, just because I'm older, it doesn't mean I'm wiser, because there's a lot of people who my age, or even like a few years younger than me, I just don't understand where they're coming from. But I feel like a lot of younger people really shouldn't engage in these behaviors, and it's kind of frightening to see. I don't know if this includes my generation. It probably does. Just my generation, people younger, thinking in I guess short-sighted ways and acting like that's the right way to go in life, right? Okay, so wow, 25 minutes. So this is the Ha Man here again. If you have any thoughts, comments, down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.